The gods themselves looked afraid. That was the first thing High Commander Solenvith noticed when he stepped into the celestial amphitheater. In his 400 years of war, he had never seen the primordials show any emotion at all. Now their ancient faces carried something that looked very much like terror. Solon stood 7 feet tall, his body made of living crystal that had survived 3 cosmic wars. His people, the Anduri, were considered the finest soldiers in existence. They had brought 5,000 of their immortal crystal guard to this gathering. Around him stood the armies of a dozen other species. The molten giants of Pyrrhus, beings of living fire and stone. The psychic collective of the Ven, minds so powerful they could kill with a thought. The shadow weavers of Noctura, assassins who moved between dimensions. And then there were the humans. Solon had heard of them, of course. A young species from a small planet in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. They had only been spacefaring for a few centuries. Their bodies were soft. Their lives were short. They possessed no natural weapons, no psychic abilities, no special powers of any kind. They had sent 200 soldiers. Solon watched their leader, a woman named Diana Reyes, as she organized her small squad. She was perhaps 5.5 feet tall. Her skin looked fragile enough to cut with a fingernail. Her equipment appeared primitive compared to the crystal armor and energy weapons the other species carried. He leaned toward one of his officers. They are here as a diplomatic courtesy. Keep them in the rear where they cannot embarrass themselves. The woman looked up. She had heard him. Solon expected anger or shame. Instead, she simply smiled and returned to her work. The eldest primordial rose to address the gathered armies. His form was difficult to look at directly. He existed in too many dimensions at once. You have been summoned because existence itself faces destruction, the primordial said. The Hollow King has awakened in the space between realities. He is a consciousness of pure negation. He devours not just life, but the very concept of existence. His void heart grows stronger with each passing moment. Soon, he will consume everything that has ever been or ever will be. Solon felt the weight of those words. Around him, warriors from across the cosmos shifted uneasily. Your mission is simple to describe and nearly impossible to achieve. You must enter the Hollow Realm, fight through the Hollow King's armies, and destroy the Void Heart before it grows too powerful to stop. Many of you will not return. Perhaps none of you will return. Then why do we go? Asked one of the molten giants, his voice like grinding stones. Because if you do not, there will be no universe left to mourn your absence. The primordials began opening the gateway. Reality itself tore open, revealing a darkness that hurt to perceive. Colors that should not exist bled through the opening. The air grew cold in ways that had nothing to do with temperature. Solon had faced death many times. He had fought in battles that lasted centuries. But looking into that gateway, he felt something he had not experienced in hundreds of years. Fear that he noticed that even the primordials stepped back from the opening. These were beings who had created the cosmos itself. They had shaped stars and seeded life across infinite worlds. And they were afraid that as the armies began their march toward the gateway, Solon passed close to the human contingent. Diana Reyes was checking her soldiers' equipment one final time. She spoke to them in a calm, steady voice. Remember your training. Watch each other's backs. And if things get weird, we adapt. That's what we do. One of her soldiers, a young man with dark skin and kind eyes, laughed nervously. Captain, I think things are already pretty weird. Then we're ahead of schedule. She patted his shoulder. You've got this, William. Solon shook his head. These creatures had no idea what they were walking into. Their optimism was almost painful to witness. They would be among the first to fall. As he stepped toward the gateway, one of the primordials caught his attention. The ancient being spoke in a voice meant only for him. Watch the humans closely, Commander. Solon frowned. Why? They are barely relevant to this campaign. The primordial's expression was unreadable. There is a reason we insisted they come. You will understand eventually. Or you will die before understanding becomes necessary. Before Solon could respond, the primordial turned away. The gateway swallowed the armies one by one. The Crystal Guard marched in perfect formation, their bodies gleaming with inner light. The molten giants left scorched footprints on the ground. The shadow weavers simply faded into the darkness ahead. The humans walked in like they were heading to any other battle. No ceremony, no grand gestures, just soldiers doing a job. Solon took one last look at the universe he might never see again. Then he stepped into the hollow realm. The darkness embraced him. Behind him, he heard Diana Reyes say to her troops, "All right, people, let's go save existence." Again? Again? Solon thought. What did she mean by again? He would find out. And the answer would change everything he believed about strength, about courage, and about what it truly meant to be a warrior. But that understanding was still ahead of him. For now, there was only the dark, and the war, and the small humans marching beside him into the realm of a god-killing nightmare. Nothing in the hollow realm made sense. Solon had expected darkness, but this was something far worse. The sky bent at angles that hurt his mind. Colors existed here that had no names, colors that felt wrong against his crystalline eyes. The ground beneath his feet kept trying to forget it was solid. The combined army pushed forward through this nightmare landscape. 50,000 warriors from across the cosmos, marching toward a black sun in the distance that pulled at reality itself. Within the first hour, soldiers began to break. The Venn Collective lost their psychic connection first. Their shared minds had always been their greatest strength. But the hollow realm introduced thoughts into their network that did not belong to any living being. Thoughts of emptiness. Thoughts of unbeing. 30 of their psychics collapsed. Their minds shattered beyond repair. The Shadow Weavers fared no better. They tried to slip between dimensions as they always did, but there were no dimensions here to slip between. They became visible, vulnerable, terrified. Even the Anduri Crystal Guard began showing cracks. Not physical cracks, though those came too. Mental cracks. Emotional cracks. The hollow realm whispered to them that they were nothing, that their victories meant nothing, that their immortality was just a longer path to the same ending. Then the Unmakers came. Solon had never seen anything like them. They were not creatures in any normal sense. They were holes in existence, shaped like soldiers. Where they stepped, reality ceased to remember it had ever existed there. Where they struck, their victims did not die. They simply stopped having ever been. The Crystal Guard met them in battle with perfect technique, the kind of warfare that had won 3 cosmic wars. They died anyway. Solon watched as warriors he had known for centuries were erased from existence. Not killed, erased. He could not even remember their names anymore, because the Unmakers had taken those 2. In the first battle alone, the Anduri lost 2,000 soldiers. The Molten Giants lost half their number. The Venn Collective was nearly destroyed entirely. And then Solon saw the humans fight. He had positioned them in the rear, expecting them to flee or fall quickly. Instead, Diana Reyes had moved her squad to wherever the fighting was thickest. They should have been killed in seconds. They were not killed in seconds. An Unmaker reached for one of the human soldiers. The man did not freeze in terror as so many others had. He ducked, rolled, and came up shooting with a weapon that should not have worked in this realm. Somehow it did. Conventional weapons are useless, Solon shouted to Diana. We have tried everything. Diana nodded while firing at another Unmaker. Yeah, we noticed. So we tried something unconventional. She pulled a small device from her belt and threw it at the creature. It exploded in a burst of pure light and sound and emotion. The Unmaker screamed, a sound like reality tearing, and retreated. What was that? Emotional grenade. We figured out that these things feed on emptiness. So we gave them the opposite. That one was filled with joy. We have ones for anger, love, hope. William made them from memories of his daughter's birthday party. Solon stared at her. You weaponized feelings? We weaponized everything. That's kind of our thing. The battle continued. Humans died too, but far fewer than should have been possible. When one tactic stopped working, they changed tactics. When one weapon failed, they built another from scraps and willpower. When surrounded with no hope of escape, Diana Reyes simply said to her squad, "Well, this is new. Let's figure it out." And they did. By the end of the first day, the Anduri had lost over 3,000 soldiers. The total Allied casualties numbered in the tens of thousands. Human casualties, 19. Solon demanded an explanation. Diana gave him one while patching a wound on another soldier's arm. We adapt. That's what humans do. Every time something kills one of us, the rest of us learn from it. We share information constantly. We change our approach. We refuse to keep making the same mistake. But your lives are so short. How can you learn fast enough? Diana smiled. Because we have to. We've never had the luxury of time or immortality. So we learn to learn fast or die? Mostly, we do both. That night, what passed for night in this horrible place, Solon began writing in his journal. It was a habit from his youth, something he had not done in 200 years. His first entry read, I have fought beside the Anduri for 400 years. I have never seen soldiers like these humans. They do not fight despite their fear. They fight because of it. They do not survive despite their weakness. They survive because they have never known anything else. I am beginning to think we have underestimated them badly. He looked across the camp at the human squad. They were laughing about something. Laughing, in this realm of nightmares. One of them was singing a song from their homeworld. Solon closed his journal and wondered what else he had been wrong about. The bone cathedral rose before them like a monument to every universe that had ever died. Its walls were made from the compressed remains of dead realities. Its towers reached into a sky that did not exist. And it stood between the Allied army and the Void Heart Point. 3 days of fighting had reduced the army to less than half its original strength. The Anduri Crystal Guard numbered only 800 now, down from 5,000. The Molten Giants were nearly extinct. The Shadow Weavers had retreated into themselves, too traumatized to fight effectively. Human casualties stood at 31 dead, 169 still fighting. Solon could not understand these numbers. He pulled Diana Reyes aside during a brief rest period and demanded answers. How, he asked. How are so many of you still alive? Diana wiped blood from her face. Not her blood. We learn fast. Every death teaches us something. Every mistake gets analyzed within minutes and shared with everyone else. See that soldier over there? She pointed to a woman with short hair and tired eyes. Rosa figured out that humming disrupts the Unmaker's ability to target. Now everyone hums during combat. But you should not be able to survive here at all. Your bodies are fragile. Your minds should have broken by now. Diana laughed, though there was no humor in it. Commander, humans grow up knowing we are going to die. We know from childhood that the universe does not care about us. Most species discover that truth and collapse. We discovered it and decided to keep going anyway. This place tells us we are nothing? We have heard that before. From ourselves. The siege of the Bone Cathedral began at what passed for dawn. The Hollow King's generals defended the fortress. They were beings that had once been gods themselves before the void consumed and corrupted them. They knew every tactic, every weakness, every fear of the species arrayed against them. One of them had been the war god of the Anduri. Solon faced his former deity across the battlefield. The creature wore the shape of crystalline perfection, but twisted, wrong. It smiled with a mouth that should not exist. Little soldier, it said, I know everything about you. I taught your ancestors to fight. I know every move you will make before you make it. The fallen god was right. Every attack Solon launched was countered before it began. Every strategy he employed had already been defeated. The Crystal Guard broke against their former god like waves against stone. The assault stalled. Species that had conquered galaxies found themselves pushed back by beings that had once been their protectors. Then Diana Reyes appeared beside Solon. I need your permission to take my people through that breach. She pointed to a small opening in the cathedral wall, barely visible through the chaos of battle. That is suicide. The fallen gods will destroy you. Maybe. But sitting here is definitely death. At least this way we have a chance. Solon wanted to refuse. He had grown to respect these humans over the past 3 days. He did not want to watch them die. I cannot authorize that. Diana nodded. I understand. Then she turned to her squad and raised her voice. Humans, on me. We're going through that breach. Captain, I said no. And I heard you. But you're not my commander. My orders come from Earth. And Earth says we finish the job. She ran toward the breach. Her squad followed without hesitation. 169 humans charging into certain death because their captain asked them to. The fallen gods turned their attention to these new attackers. Solon watched in horror as the humans were surrounded, cut off, seemingly doomed. 30 minutes later, the Bone Cathedral fell. Solon did not see what happened inside. He only saw the results. The fortress walls crumbled. The fallen gods screamed as something destroyed them from within. And then the humans emerged from the ruins, covered in dust and blood, 40 fewer than when they entered. Diana walked up to Solon. She was limping. One of her arms hung at a wrong angle. Breach secured, she said simply. How? The fallen gods knew every tactic. They had been gods for millions of years. Diana smiled through cracked lips. Exactly. They knew every tactic that has ever existed. So we made up new ones. Turns out, fighting dirty is not in the divine playbook. That night, Solon added another entry to his journal. His hand was shaking as he wrote. Today I witnessed 169 humans defeat beings that were once gods. They did not do it through superior strength or ancient wisdom. They did it through pure, stubborn refusal to accept that victory was impossible. I asked their captain how she keeps going despite the losses, despite the impossible odds. She looked at me like I was foolish and said, "What else would we do? Give up." She said it like surrender had never occurred to her. Like it was not even an option. How do you defeat an enemy that does not know how to stop fighting? I am beginning to understand why the primordials insisted on bringing humans. And I am beginning to fear the answer. The void heart pulsed in the distance. Closer now, the war was far from over. But for the first time, Solon believed they might actually win. Because of humans. Because of 200 fragile creatures who did not know they were supposed to lose. The inner sanctum of the hollow realm was a place where existence itself became thin. Solon could feel reality stretching beneath his feet like skin over bone. One wrong step and he might fall through into an infinity of nothing. The void heart hung in the distance like a black sun. It pulled at everything around it. Not just matter, but meaning, purpose, hope. Barely 2,000 soldiers remained from an army of 50,000. The Anduri Crystal Guard had been reduced to a few hundred. Most other species had lost even more. They walked forward not because they believed in victory, but because stopping felt like dying. Solon had spent the last 3 days fighting beside humans. He had learned their names, their stories. Private William Okonkwo always kept a picture of his daughter taped to his chest armor. He had shown it to Solon once. A small girl with bright eyes and a gap-toothed smile. "She's 6, William had said. "I promised her I'd come home." Sergeant Rosa Martinez sang old Earth songs during combat. Strange songs about love and loss and hope. Somehow, they helped everyone fight harder. Corporal David Ashworth had lost his arm to an unmaker on the second day. He had burned the wound closed himself, wrapped the stump, and kept fighting with one hand. When Solon asked him why, David just shrugged and said, "Job's not done." Then the Hollow King unleashed his final weapon. It was not a physical attack. It was something far worse. A psychic wave that swept across the battlefield, showing every being their own cosmic insignificance. Solon saw the truth of his existence. 400 years of war, and for what? The universe was infinite. His victories were specks of dust in an ocean of time. Nothing he had done mattered. Nothing he would ever do could matter. He was small, temporary, meaningless. The Crystal Guard collapsed around him, their perfect discipline shattered by the weight of their own irrelevance. The molten giants cooled and crumbled, their fire extinguished by despair. The Venn Collective fell silent, their great minds crushed by the truth they had always feared. Solon dropped to his knees. What was the point? Why fight when nothing meant anything? Why exist when existence itself was a cosmic accident with no purpose? A hand touched his shoulder. Diana Reyes knelt beside him. Tears streamed down her face. The weapon had affected her too. But she was still moving, still functioning. "How?" Solon asked. His voice sounded broken. "How can you keep going? You know the truth now. We are nothing. None of this matters." Diana was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady despite the tears. "We've always known. Every human grows up understanding this. We are small. We are temporary. The universe was here before us and will be here long after we're gone. We live for a heartbeat compared to the stars. Then how do you not collapse? Because we decided that we would care anyway." She helped him to his feet. "The universe doesn't give us meaning. So we make our own. We love each other. We fight for each other. We build things and create things and help each other, not because it matters to the cosmos, but because it matters to us." Across the battlefield, the humans were moving among the fallen soldiers of other species. Not fighting, helping, holding hands, sharing water, talking. Rosa Martinez was singing to a group of broken Venn, some old Earth song about not giving up. David Ashworth, one-armed David, was helping a fallen molten giant relight his inner fire using some kind of improvised device. William Okonkwo sat beside a dying shadow weaver, showing her the picture of his daughter, and telling her about the girl's laugh. Slowly, impossibly, soldiers began to rise. Solon watched as beings who had surrendered to despair found their feet again because a handful of fragile humans refused to let them fall. Your species has always known you are insignificant, Solon said. You have always known you will die. And you came here anyway. You fight gods anyway. What? Diana looked at him with eyes that had seen too much death, but still held light. Because someone has to. And we're used to the odds being against us. She offered him her hand. Now come on, Commander. We've got a void heart to destroy, and I'm not doing it without my crystalline backup. Solon took her hand. He let this small, fragile, impossibly strong human pull him back to his feet. Around them, the army rose. Not because the despair was gone, but because humans had taught them to fight through it. The march toward the void heart resumed. And for the first time, Solon understood that he was not fighting beside warriors. He was fighting beside something far more dangerous. He was fighting beside beings who had looked into the void of meaninglessness and chosen to fill it with love. The Hollow King manifested between them and the void heart. He was not a creature. He was an absence made solid. Looking at him caused soldiers to forget they existed. His voice was not sound. It was the removal of sound. When he spoke, words disappeared from the minds of those who heard them. You have fought well, the Hollow King said. Better than any who came before. But this ends now. Surrender, and I will make your ending painless. Your existence will simply cease. No suffering, no fear, just nothing. Solon felt the offer pull at him. It would be so easy. Just stop. Just let go. Just fall into peaceful emptiness. Around him, warriors from every species considered the offer. Even the primordials, watching from beyond the hollow realm, debated whether victory was still possible. The humans did not pause. Diana Reyes raised her weapon and fired at the Hollow King. The shot did nothing, but she kept firing anyway. That's going to be a no from us, she said. The final battle began. It was beyond anything Solon had witnessed in 400 years of war. The Hollow King erased soldiers by the hundreds with gestures that unmade reality. Warriors who had survived everything the Hollow Realm could throw at them simply stopped existing. The humans fought like demons. They used every trick they had learned, every weapon they had improvised, every tactic they had invented. They died, but they made the Hollow King work for every death, and slowly, impossibly, they cleared a path. A narrow opening appeared between the army and the void heart. It would not last long. The Hollow King was already closing it. Someone needs to go through, Diana said. Someone needs to destroy the heart. The primordials spoke from beyond the realm. Their voice echoed in the minds of every soldier. The destruction of the void heart requires the complete sacrifice of the one who destroys it. They will not simply die. They will be unmade entirely. No afterlife. No memory. No trace that they ever existed. Even we cannot restore such a loss. Silence fell across the battlefield. The champion species looked at each other. Their lifespans stretched for millennia. Their histories were rich and deep. The idea of complete erasure was too horrible to contemplate. The primordials themselves could not do it. Their existence was woven too deeply into reality. Their destruction would damage the cosmos itself. I'll go, said Diana Reyes. Every remaining human immediately volunteered as well. Solon grabbed Diana's arm. No, you have proven yourselves. You deserve to survive, to return home, to be celebrated as the heroes you are. Diana looked at him with gentle eyes. That's not why we came. We didn't come for glory. We came because people needed help. The universe needs help right now. So we help. But the cost, there's always a cost. We've always paid it. The human squad gathered. They argued, but not about whether someone should go. They argued about who would get the honor. I have a daughter, William Okonkwo said. I promised her I'd come home. Then you should stay, Diana replied. No, Captain. That's exactly why I should go. So she has a universe to grow up in. They drew lots. Diana wanted to simply volunteer herself, but her soldiers refused to let her. You don't get to be special, Rosa Martinez told her. We do this together or not at all. William drew the short straw. He nodded slowly. He looked at the picture of his daughter one last time, kissed it, and handed it to Diana. Tell her I went out swinging. The remaining humans formed a line. They would create a distraction, draw the Hollow King's attention, give William the time he needed. Humans, Diana called out. Let's show this cosmic horror what Earth can do. They charged. The Hollow King turned his attention to these screaming, firing, impossibly stubborn creatures who refused to die quietly. He reached for them with hands made of nothing, erasing soldiers with every motion, but they kept coming. Every time one fell, another took their place. They were buying time with their lives. William Rand, he was not the strongest soldier. He was not the fastest or the smartest. He was just a man who loved his daughter and wanted her to have a future. The void heart loomed before him, a black sun that drank in light and hope and existence itself. William did not hesitate. The Hollow King screamed when he realized what was happening. He turned from the humans, reaching for William with all his terrible power. Too late. William Okonkwo touched the void heart. His last words were broadcast to everyone through some miracle of dying thought. Hey, ugly. Humanity sends its regards. The void heart shattered. The Hollow King screamed, a sound that tore through dimensions and began to fall apart. William Okonkwo ceased to exist. Not died. Ceased. Every trace of him, every memory, every impact he had ever made on the universe began to fade. But the humans remembered. They stood at attention and saluted as their friend faded from reality. They held on to his name through sheer stubborn will. They refused to let him be forgotten. Diana clutched the picture of a little girl whose father had just saved the universe, and she did not cry. There would be time for tears later. Right now, there was still work to do. The celestial amphitheater felt different now. When Solon had first entered it, the space had been filled with armies ready for war. Now it held only survivors, and far too few of them. The primordials held a ceremony to honor the fallen. They spoke each name aloud, letting the sounds echo through dimensions. Warriors from across the cosmos bowed their heads as their friends and comrades were remembered. It took hours. When they reached William Okonkwo, something strange happened. The primordials speaking the names paused, struggled, and fell silent. We cannot speak his name fully, the ancient being admitted. Parts of him have been erased from reality itself. The sounds that made his name no longer exist in our dimension. Diana stepped forward. Her voice was steady. William Okonkwo, Private, Earth Defense Force. Father. Hero. The name hung in the air. The humans remembered. They refused to let the universe forget. The primordials offered rewards to the surviving champions. The Anduri received restored soldiers. Their fallen comrades rebuilt from cosmic energy. The Ven received psychic healing. The Molten Giants received new fire. They turned to the humans. You have earned the greatest gifts we can offer. Immortality, if you wish it. Power beyond mortal comprehension. Territories spanning galaxies. Ascension to godhood itself. The surviving humans looked at each other. 97 remained from the original 200. Diana spoke for them. We want one thing. William's daughter should know her father was a hero. The primordials seemed confused. That is all. We offer you eternity. We don't want eternity. We want to go home. We have families waiting. The ceremony ended. Species departed through cosmic gateways, returning to their home worlds forever changed by what they had witnessed. Solon found himself unable to leave. He sought out the eldest primordial, the one who had first spoken to him about watching the humans. Why? Solon asked. Why did you insist on bringing them? You knew what they were capable of. You feared them. I could see it in your eyes when they arrived. The primordial was quiet for a long moment. We have watched humanity since they first looked up at the stars. Such a young species. Such fragile bodies. Such brief lives. By all logic, they should have destroyed themselves long ago. But they did not. No, they did not. And we began to understand why. The ancient being turned to face Solon fully. Every other species in the cosmos operates on predictable patterns. Self-interest. Survival. Power. We can model their choices. We can see what they will do before they do it. We have guided the development of civilizations for billions of years because we understand how beings think. And humans are different. Humans break every model we have ever built. They will die for strangers. They will fight gods out of spite. They will sacrifice everything they have for people they have never met. They do not act in their own interest. They act for concepts, for ideals, for love. Solon thought about William Okonkwo, running toward the void heart with a picture of his daughter in his hand. We do not fear their strength. The primordial continued. Strength can be matched. We do not fear their weapons. Weapons can be countered. We fear their hearts. A being with nothing to lose is dangerous. A being with everything to lose who fights anyway is terrifying. Humans love more deeply than any species we have ever encountered, and they will burn the universe down to protect that love. Solon returned home a changed being. He wrote the final entry in his journal, the words that would become sacred text among his people for millennia to come. I have fought beside gods and monsters. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed the death of stars and the birth of worlds. But I have never seen anything like humanity. They are small. They are fragile. They live for barely a cosmic heartbeat. And yet when the universe itself was threatened, they were the ones who answered. Not for reward. Not for glory. Not for survival. They answered because someone needed help. This is why the gods fear them. It is not that humans can kill gods. It is that humans will try. Not because they can win, but because it is right. Against such beings, even infinity itself must tremble. Years later, Solon traveled to Earth. He found William Okonkwo's daughter, now a young woman with her father's eyes, that he told her about her father. About the war. About the sacrifice. She listened quietly. When he finished, she smiled. I knew he was a hero. Mom always said so. Thank you for telling me how. She invited him for dinner. That evening, sitting at a table surrounded by humans who treated an alien warrior like family, Solon finally understood. The food was simple. The conversation was warm. Someone told a joke and everyone laughed, including Solon, though he did not fully understand the humor. This was why gods feared humanity, not the warriors, not the weapons, not the stubborn refusal to die, the love, the simple, powerful, unbreakable love they carried for each other and offered freely to anyone who needed it, even to ancient alien soldiers who had once dismissed them as irrelevant. Solon looked at the picture on the wall. William Okonkwo, smiling, holding his infant daughter, that he raised his glass. To William. And to humanity. The family raised their glasses in return. To Dad. And to new friends. Outside the window, the stars burned bright. And somewhere in the cosmos, even the gods watched with something very close to fear and something very close to awe.